Get ready, boys.
Boy, we're fired up today because we have a tremendous guest in studio. Neil Graham, the assistant coach for your Dallas Stars, will join us right now. So I don't even know why let's just go now. Hey everybody, this is the DLS Stars podcast. It is Friday, February 20th, and we are here live in our lounge studios. As you can see, we have a very special guest, but before we get to formal introductions, don't forget that we have a very limited merchandise site-wide clear-out sale, 30% off everything at our DLLS merch store. That's alldls.com. That's our website. Click on merch, and you can get anything, including the hoodie I'm wearing right now. Nope. Sam is not wearing anything, of course, but then you can get that Finnish Mafia hoodie that we've all really enjoyed. Anything in between, 30% off. Don't miss it now. And I got to say, Sam, I'm regretting. I thought it was a little chilly out today.
Oh, no, it's
not
toasty in here.
And the sweatshirt's a bad idea at this point. We're going to leak right through it. But enough about that. As you can see, special guest Neil Graham, Dallas Stars assistant coach, is in our studio. Craig Ludwig is somewhere. There he is. Hey,
did you guys just say it's chilly there?
No, it's not.
Oh,
I thought it might be.
It's chillier than 80, which is what it's been.
Yeah.
Okay. Listen, hey, can you pull that shot of Neil up again that you opened up with?
Oh, the thumbnail?
Boy.
You're going to ask Ryan for the
thumbnail.
Ryan's not going to like that at all.
Pull it up again, Ryan. Can Ryan not go back to it now? Is it gone?
Not really, he said.
He says deal with it.
Okay. Well, it looks like, Neil, are you running for any kind of political office at any time soon?
They caught me in a serious moment, I think, on that one.
It looks very, very presidential or like a vice president kind of shot up there. You look good in that shot.
Oh, I appreciate it. Wasn't going for it, but I'll take it.
But now looking at you sitting there, you look like with that outfit you have on, you look like you should be where I'm at right now in Wisconsin. It looks like you can go out and cut some trees. Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Vice President Neil Graham.
I would be in for a world of trouble if that happened.
That would be interesting. Luds, do you want to start us off since we have to squint to hear you anyway? Why don't you give Neil the first question of this one?
Oh, it's an easy one for Neil. You only got how many guys you got there? 10, 11, 12. I'm just curious. What are you doing with those guys? To get them wherever you want to get them before the other guys come back. The second part of that would be when the others, the good players that are Olympians now, are those guys going to practice at all, or morning skate, or do they step right in the lineup? Two-parter.
You know what? We actually have a decent chunk right now. There's 16, so you can run a decent practice with those numbers, and whatever the exact numbers are, 10, 5, and 1. You adjust your drills a little bit. You adjust the length of a drill, how it runs, and potentially even the length of practice. But so far the 3 practices we've had back have been productive. The guys have moved well. Now, there's a little rust in the first day, but other than that, I've been impressed with the tempo and frankly, even the competitive side. Knowing we don't have a game for a few days, we don't want to waste this time, and our guys have done a good job that way. So in terms of the guys coming back from Italy, it'll be dependent on when they arrive. Where they're at, bumps and bruises wise. But if we could get a practice, that'd be great. If not, morning skate, get them caught up to speed, and let's just play.
I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about Olympics. We only have a half hour with you, so I want to go way back to summer. I think you were in the process of interviewing for a head coaching job. You're interviewing. I'd love to hear that whole process. When did you first hear about the opportunity? How did it transition to what it became now, and how'd that whole process go for you?
Yeah, obviously, the day there was a change in the coaching staff with Dallas, I think we had a playoff game in Texas that same day, and I wasn't reaching out, and they weren't going to bother me in our process and our quest to go after a Calder Cup either. So I think we spoke potentially even after that game, and it was great. Both Jim and Scott White said, "Hey, like you're going to be interviewed, but let's focus on what you need to do." And frankly, I wouldn't want it any other way. So we, knowing that opportunity was going to happen, I just wanted to focus on Texas, and we were in the third round of playoffs. We were trying to advance to the Calder Cup Finals, and it was nice just focusing on our team, our group, and then also not having to do an interview in between games or something of that nature. So I appreciate how the process went in terms of when the season ended. I had a handful of days, maybe 2 or 3 days to collect, my stuff. I went through a full formal process, even though I've been with the team, for as long as I have. And I appreciate that process. I'd rather go through it and, show, your stuff behind the scenes, because everyone knows each other as a human, but you don't always see the inner workings on a day-to-day basis. So I enjoyed going through that process. It was excellent. Professional, as you can imagine, when Jim is running or conducting anything. And at the end of the day, it's all worked out great for everyone.
I don't know how much you want to pull back the curtain, but can you give us any insight as to what your sales pitch is in an NHL head coaching interview like that?
No, fortunately, I went really far with another organization the summer prior. You lean on those experiences, whether it's the initial interview, the in-person interview. In Dallas, I fortunately skipped a step because of my tenure with the team. So I went right into the in-person with our organization, which made sense. But using the other opportunity the year prior, you look at it, you see what you liked about it, maybe some things you want to adjust. But, the one thing I've always really tried to rely on is authenticity. And, if you're their guy, you're their guy, and you be authentic to your own process. And at the end of the day, you go through it. And as long as you felt like you did your part and you were authentic to yourself, it'll work out the way it should. And sometimes that means you don't get it, but it still works out the way it should.
So the previous one, the year before, was there anything that you look back on, and then for this one, this past summer, that you would have done differently, or did you learn something that really helped you with the Stars?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say different. I was probably a little more efficient in my preparation, and knowing the process I did the summer prior, going through, my plan, the way I was organizing things. I think it was just a little more streamlined, and I was probably a little more purposeful in my planning portion of that. And then frankly, then you just execute and you do your thing. And like I said, when you're interviewing for a job at that level of hockey, every candidate's qualified, every candidate is detailed, everyone's going to do a good job, and it truly should work out the way it does. And the job I didn't get the summer prior, that all worked out. This job all worked out. So I think sometimes, you go into one of those moments and everyone's trying to put their best foot forward. And as long as you do, you got to trust the process that it'll all kind of find its way.
Hey, Luds, I'm going to let you have the next question, but I have a quick comment. When you said more efficient in your preparation, it's the same thing in broadcasting. You can never do enough, or you can never do too much, I guess is a better way to put it. Because if you had another hour, you can look up more stats, you can watch more video, you can learn about another player or dig deeper into backgrounds. I'm guessing with coaching, it's at some point you have to go coach the game or do the meeting or the interview. It's probably a good thing to learn how to streamline, because you could do it your entire waking life.
Yeah, no doubt. You can overhandle the wood a little, and at the end of the day, it's important to know what you want to deliver, and then again, it's about executing.
All right, Luds, you're up.
I'm a little distracted. Normally, I'm getting text messages from Ryan telling me, don't do that or don't do that, but this one's from my wife, Kim, who's right back here, giving me the route for the snowmobile as soon as we get on it. We're going to the Pine Knot Bar, then we're going to Timbers Bar and Grill, then we're going to Sisters Bar. Okay,
Luds, will you focus?
So we'll see you guys
excited.
probably by the end of the month. Hey, so Neil, since you were talking a little bit about that coaching part, is it difficult handling the American League guys? Because you can be a little bit, I did a little bit of that, and you can be a little bit harder on those guys, right? And all of a sudden you get the superstars. So do you dial it back, or can you be the same guy you were with the younger guys than you are with these guys? The prima donna guys.
Yeah. No, it's a fair question. I think as long as you treat everyone correctly and fairly, there's an element that's the same. I'd say there's a different need between the two levels, and obviously when you're in the American League, You're essentially their gatekeeper to helping them through that success. And I think, but trust me, you don't always have their ear either. So you're going to learn experiences with those players. But I think ultimately, they're trying to get to that next spot. For me, fortunately here, the guys I work with primarily are all our power play guys, which, to your point, would be some of the, higher echelon, superstars, so to speak. They want info. And I think as long as it's correct, they know you've put in your work in terms of preparing your plan and then asking them to execute. I think they're open to it and they want to be coached and they want to be challenged. I know, especially from our group, working with our power play guys, they want more, they want a new idea. And then I think something that we have to be open to as coaches, which has probably evolved a little bit over the years, is collaboration. And, there's probably times you see, Mikko and I talking to each other on the bench. And, I remember earlier in the year, I was asking Johnny, I said, hey, this is something I'm seeing live. It's on the bench. And I said, like I see this, but like, can we do this? And Mikko goes, oh yeah, he can do it. And I said, all right, well, let's look for it. And then they went and did it. So, I've really enjoyed that process of almost, taking the constraints off, challenging ideas. I haven't been afraid to throw like, hey, I want us to try this. And to their credit, they give good feedback. Hey, let's do it. If it didn't work, I'm like, it didn't work. Like, no, it was us. Like, we made a mistake here. Let's try it again. Or, stuff like that. So I've enjoyed that collaborative part. But in the same breath, if we're not executing at a high rate or if we're a little lethargic or we're not running our routes properly, that needs to be challenged by me as well. And they do a good job of holding each other accountable, which I think also helps that team collaboration, coach to player.
I would assume with a group of guys, especially where they got started and they're running at 30%, above 30%, you may have things that you're, hey, and just, nope, we're going, if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing.
Yeah, you know what? And I think the way it's been, clipping, I think we're just a hair under 30 right now. I think the bigger challenge is, we have to make minor adjustments day to day, or that's just going to naturally regress. And there's been moments of regression. And I think if you get too stuck on the it's not broke, don't fix it, it's going to eventually regress and teams are going to catch up. And, we've had a decent balance of adding without changing our core foundation to it. And I think that's brought some success. And, there's going to be moments even moving forward where we do get stuck, is kind of the word I like to use. It's typically in a formation. And, my job is to maybe offer an idea of how to unstick it. And then frankly, with the elite hockey minds on it, I never say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is your play. It's always, hey, this is what I see. You have this option or this option, potentially a third option. And then they make the correct read. And I think that's something I've enjoyed is, presenting a plan that potentially has a couple looks and then watching them choose the correct one. And they've been choosing the correct decision more times than not.
Hey, Owen, Sam, I want you to go back into Neil's comments there. Do you remember one word that popped in there? Which word do you think it would be for me? Come on, you two.
Sam?
Okay, long enough.
It said stuck.
The word was adjustments.
I thought you were going to say on collaborate.
Luz is big on adjustments.
I don't even know what that means.
So
I like the word
since you and Luz just mentioned the percentages, I was going to ask you, you look back 10 years, obviously it gets even more when you go further. Power plays are now hitting in 30s where they used to be. A great power play was in the 20s. Is there anything you can put your finger on at the NHL level of why they're just getting better and better and better?
Well, I wouldn't say 30 is a common.
Right.
I'd say you're mid 20s. Like if you're 23, 24, 25, you're going to close to that top 10, right? I think it's just the skill level of these players. And, when you look at it, even a handful of years ago, you have one or two guys of that kind of talent on a unit potentially. You get a third guy with that kind of talent, maybe it gets going. But, you look at us, you probably have, 6 or 7 players with that ability. And the bigger challenge is, some guys have to go to a second unit. And that's more of a challenge as opposed to the sheer talent that, players have nowadays. And that's the fun part is, testing boundaries. There's nothing really that we probably couldn't attempt based on skill level. And that's across the league. And it's more about risk reward and the risk. We obviously think of maybe a shorthanded chance. The risk is also, frustration, changing momentum, forcing. But is the reward potentially in the back of the net. And so I think that's when you're looking into a pre-scout, or you're looking into how we might want to change shapes against a particular kill. What's the risk reward in terms of, is this going to work, and how will it kind of snowball the rest of our momentum?
Boy, I want to talk a lot more about this, but we have to hit a quick break. More with Dallas Stars assistant coach Neil Graham in a moment, right here on DLLS. As we get older, you start to feel as though that energy, that spark, some of the stuff just doesn't come as easily. Maybe your metabolism starts to feel like it's dropping a little bit. Well, one of the great things about Marsmen is that it is all natural. We're not asking you to put some stuff that you don't know. It's all things that are, again, very safe, and of course, things that occur naturally. So there's no synthetics, no needles, no dependency. They tell us it's like hitting a reset button for your hormone factory instead of shutting it down. So what do? Well, for a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. It's the perfect way to kick off the new year strong. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts at checkout. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that the DLS Stars show sent you.
What kind of dreams did you have when you were a kid? I know for me, I wanted to be a professional hockey player. For guys like Robert Tiffin, he probably wanted to be an accountant, right? Let's be honest. But whatever dreams you had, Shopify can help you bring those dreams to life, especially if that's starting your own business. Shopify is where so many people start their own business. They bring you everything possible because they are the e-commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world, and 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. Shopify even powers the DLS merch store. So you can get this shirt, this hat on our store. That's because Shopify makes it easy. If you're ready to sell, you are ready for Shopify. Turn your big business idea into with Shopify on your side. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/allcity. That's shopify.com/allcity.
A little bit of housekeeping here with Dallas Stars assistant coach Neil Graham. We have a watch along immediately following our show today. So we'll be done at 3 o'clock, and then Sam and I believe GM Ben's going to hop on, and we'll do a watch along for the rest of USA-Slovakia. The reason why I'm bringing that up is not only so you'll join us on that YouTube channel, but also because the U.S. just scored to take a 1-0 lead. And so, Grammer, I have to ask, since we're here at this moment, how are you feeling about, Canada made it to the gold medal game, but barely the last 2 knockout games. How did you feel watching those two as much as you could, because you had to work too?
You know what? All these games have become close. This one was tougher, right? Being Canadian, but also against our Finns. Obviously, I was still cheering for Canada, but if Finland would have won, I would have been happy for our guys. So that one was a tough one, right? You have Radek with Czech, and you want all your guys to have a good experience as well. But the Canadian in me, I now can focus a little bit on Canada, but we'll see what happens here in this game, obviously. But a Canadian USA final would be pretty enjoyable.
It's been pretty cool. We watched the 2 days ago, and then today we got to watch the end of the Canada game in the room with a lot of the guys after they came off the ice.
Yeah.
And then we talked to Naz today after practice because Glenn was busy, and Naz comes out just beaming, big old smile, grinning ear to ear. So it's been fun to be around the room for this stuff too, right?
We may have snuck an iPad into a secure location near one of the benches during practice. So I was going over to get some water, which I don't normally do.
A lot of players were getting water at the same time. I think,
yes. And so that was good just to hydrate.
I want to ask you about something we've seen with Finland.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what your stance is on it. I've noticed that they've played Miro and Esa a ton. Miro Heiskanen and Esa Lindell for Finland, as you would expect, but not necessarily in the same orientation that you guys have most of this year, which is with Miro playing on the left predominantly, not entirely, but mostly on the left with Esa on the right. Do you have a strong feeling on lefty-righty style and seeing them do it the other way, does that make you think about the way you guys use them?
You know what? We did notice that they had that switch, especially early, and then we saw it switch back to almost what we've been running more here in Dallas. And you know what? At the end of the day, you know, they're big boys, and they both can handle either side. You know, but there is something to be said about, you know, your natural path going back, more so on retrieval routes, and you know, you get used to it, and you know, playing your offside, you get used to it, especially those two. But I wasn't shocked to see them to switch back, but you know, that's their decision, not ours, right? And we obviously put them in a certain spot here, and we're comfortable with that too.
Let's go, Luds.
Always talking about the superstars. I want to talk about a little bit of the middle of the lineup. You had Ritzy Ritz back in Texas. What do you see from his game? And you know, we obviously like him a lot, and I'm sure you guys too. What do you feel his ceiling is?
You know what? Ritzy's a guy from a coaching perspective. He lets you sleep at night. You know, the more Ritzovians you have in the lineup, the better you feel when they're over the boards. And he plays the game the right way, and he essentially plays the game we were all taught as kids, right? When you're learning how the sport's supposed to be played on paper. And what stands out for me is his hockey IQ. He reads it at an elite level, and even as a rookie in the NHL, he sees the structural side of the game better than most. I think you pair that with obviously the jam and the tenacity you guys see on a nightly basis. And what I like, it's truly authentic. And he played like that game in, game out for Texas last season. You know, we went to the third round of the playoffs, as you guys know. And, you know, obviously we had some really good veterans on our team. But, you know, at the end of the day, it was a rookie, you know, that was our dog. Like in the, you know, he's coming by, he's getting the bench going, his habits, his energy, it was relentless. And, you know, we had a handful of those guys, so not to discredit them, but he was our driver. And obviously he was rookie of the year in the American Hockey League. And so I'm not shocked at his success. In terms of his ceiling, you know, you see him complimenting a second line right now, right? And if not our first line, you know, you could switch those orders around on the whiteboard and you could put him either way. And he doesn't look out of place. And I think what's happened is you've seen some other guys slot in other areas that have brought us success. And, you know, one guy doesn't adjust to that new environment, it probably doesn't work. But, you know, Ritzy's done a good job. And, you know, it takes a minute to all of a sudden now you have Mikko Rantanen on your wing and you're like, oh, I better make sure this pass is perfect and this. And, you know, he had to figure out quick, just be a hockey player. You know, passing to Mikko is no different than passing to Oscar, just execute. But not everyone can do that. And the fact that the moment hasn't been too big for him, that really matters. So, you know, you look at Dallas, you know, a top team in the NHL. You know, obviously we want to go on a deep run. You know, we all know what our goal and expectations are. The moment never seems to be too big for him. And you can't get enough players like that. So for me, the ceiling is high.
He referenced, I think on our show, we had him on our show. And then anytime I talk to him, he talks about your relationship and how much he still uses you and, you know, uses you as a sounding board and you guys have a great relationship. I'd love to hear you describe your relationship with your players down in Texas and how you then utilize now up here with a bunch of the guys that are on the roster that you've already coached.
Well, you know what, I'd say it's a two-way street. And I think, you know, first and foremost, when I got here this year, knowing I already had 9 players that I'd coached as their head coach, you know, that was a nice environment for myself to walk in. It doesn't mean it was always, you know, rainbows and sunshines, but there's a relationship and a working relationship and a personal relationship. And I think Ritzy, you know, we were together not only for a whole year last year. When he first came out of college, you know, we were able to get him, it might have been maybe 10 regular season games and then 2 rounds into the playoffs. And that was a bit of a cheat sheet. That got him kickstarted into a real good rookie season. So for me, I've really enjoyed an opportunity to work with a player like that. You know, you look at Maverick Bork, obviously another player I'm very close with. Seeing them now live out their childhood dream and also executing and getting better and developing, that's important. And I think that's something that, you know, can be a little lost at times at this level in particular is, you know, you still want guys to develop at this level as we're trying to push forward. And you're seeing that. And I give Glenn and Naz and, you know, the Pellets, our whole staff, a ton of credit for, you know, recognizing that. And even in decision-making late in games, special teams, you know, you're seeing guys grab a little bit more of the pie. And, you know, that can be good. And big picture, you know, a guy's out for a day, someone needs to grab a role or grab extra minutes. They've done it before. And frankly, that's where confidence comes from. It's, you know, you've either done it before, or you've put in the work to prepare for it. And, you know, he's a player that's done both.
Boy, you segued right into my next question, which is Maverick Bourque. You've seen him up close and personal in the AHL struggle with that level, figure it out, bet on himself, come back and MVP.
Yep.
Have a phenomenal year, earn his NHL spot, struggle, fight, and now he's starting to, as you said, be in that top six, whether you want to call it the first or second line. And even from the beginning of this year to now, he looks different, let alone from last year to this year. And of course, getting hurt in training camp last year or preseason did not help his cause as a rookie in the NHL. But what are you seeing? And is there any doubt in your mind that he continues to grow, because he has an incredibly high standard for himself? He expects to be not just a player, but an offensive contributor on this team.
Yeah, that's what he's done his whole life. So it's good. I don't want that mindset to change. And you know what? It's funny. Like everyone, and I get it, from a fan perspective, and you see these first rounders that we draft, and there's instant excitement and some noise around them, and that's good. It's positive. It's what it should be. But a little bit of struggles and some failures good. And, the fact that Bourque, and we laugh, right? His first year struggles were still 20 goals and 55 points in the American Hockey League on a first place team. So it wasn't like he was given
very good team.
Yeah, he wasn't given everything that first year. And believe it or not, and it was tough for him because you're coming in from the Quebec League where he had essentially dominated since his inception. He had to earn it. And, it wasn't always easy. And, we had some tough meetings. We had some tough days. But I give him full credit because it made our relationship stronger, and he's the one who did it. And then the next year he came back more driven, and he wasn't going to allow himself to be, pushed to a second PP or pushed to a third line or pushed, so he knew what the standard was. The expectations were clear. He was given some opportunity, but if he didn't grab it, it wouldn't have been continued to give into him. There was no chance, he wasn't going to take it. And what he did that second year in Texas, I haven't seen in 6 years there. That was the most dominant game 1 to game 72 by a particular player. And him and Stank did a lot together. But when Stank left and he continued the same pace, drove us into playoffs, carried us in playoffs, and we weren't as deep of a team that year. It was very impressive, and I think that's what I admired the most is, he's not going to take no for an answer, and he doesn't expect the results to be instant. If it has to mean you have to work harder, put in more work, practice, he'll do it, and you're seeing some progression from last season, and I think we're just scratching the surface, and he's going to continue to grow as a professional.
It's funny. It felt like fans maybe had more patience until Wyatt Johnston ruined it for everyone. Overachieving. Now they're like, hey, come in, be an immediate superstar.
Yeah, you know what? And Wyatt's a special player. Yeah. And you're not wrong. And, you'll start to, we draft this kid. He's going to be on the team next year. And it doesn't always work that way. We had Thomas Harley was with us for parts of 3 years.
It was great for him.
Leon, parts of 2 years. That's how it happens. Robo was 1 full year, but then there was a COVID year, there was, taxi squads, and it's just how it happens. So, what Wyatt was able to do at such a young age, it's very special, and it's not quite the norm. But, again, for Bourque in particular, an extra year, he forced the issue, and you got to give him full marks for what he was able to accomplish.
All right, Luds, we have a million more things we could ask, but we're running out of time. So we're going to let you ask Grammer the last question of the show for him.
No
pressure.
Let me narrow it down from my 10 that I have left. So first off, Neil, thanks for coming in and putting up with those two guys. What do you got? You guys got 25 games to go. What do you got? What boxes are you looking to check before you hit the playoffs?
You know what? And obviously, I'm sure you guys have talked about it. There's been a lot of change this year, right? Whether it's coaching or, some systems, and, there's a lot of new that surrounded our team. And I think what you've seen is there's been some good challenges, and we've persevered, and we found ways to get better. And even through some struggles, it yielded growth at the end of the day. In the final 25, I want to see, you heard Gully talk about that 1%. Now is the time for that. We're not learning anything new. We're not having new voices. Like, we know who each other are. We've built, we've built our foundation. I think our identity is clear. And I think at the end of the day now, it's the intangibles. how we compete on a nightly basis, how we reload, how we check. And, one thing I've always said is we should look the same without the puck. And that references the way we back check, the way we forecheck, the way we work as five. That's what I want to see during these final 25. Different individual attributes will always shine through with the puck. But the way we work and look without the puck is something I want to continue to see dial in over the last 25.
You're speaking his language. I can see
for
him
sure.
shaking his head because we've talked a lot about that. I don't know if anyone can quite scratch the Rod Brindamore level, but I must say with Gully, Neil Graham, and the rest of the coaches, you guys might be one of the most fit NHL coaching staffs. There's probably a lot more coaching work in the gym than it is going to the bar after a tough game. It just feels like that. Gully said in his intro, he goes, there's two ways to go to blow off steam as a coach, and one of them's working out. It feels like that's the way your coaching staff is doing it.
Yeah, you know what? The odd cold beer doesn't hurt either. But yes, I think we all push each other the right way there.
Well, Neil, it's a thrill to have you in. Like I said, we could do 3 hours of this. I have so many more things asked, but thank you for taking the time to come down, especially with getting ready for these games and all the stuff that you have. We're excited this season so far. It's been up and down, but mostly up, and can't wait to see what you guys do the next month and a half where you have no time off and games every 3 times in one day almost, it feels like. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
There he is, Dallas Stars assistant coach Neil Graham here on the show. More with us and Luds next on DLLS.
All right, let's talk about Supporters Club. Thanks, Neil.
Always appreciate it.
I'll see you tomorrow. All right, let's talk about the Supporters Club. If you want to see other things other than our amazing interviews with guys like Neil Graham, which that was unbelievably awesome, you can join the Supporters Club where you can get all kinds of cool stuff like exclusive badges that you can use in the chat, as well as exclusive emojis like the ones you see right there. I know we are working on some other ones. We have a Luds emoji. We have a Stanley Cone. I know the squirrel is a request. We have plenty that we're trying to get done, but you can get all of that by joining the Supporters Club. Plus, something that we are actually filming today is our YouTube Supporters Club behind-the-scenes footage. I believe I will be the star of this video, and I have zero clue what we're going to do, which is what makes it fun. These videos go anywhere from Luds cursing his brains out doing ad reads to whatever the heck they're going to make me do, to favorite Halloween costumes. So make sure you join YouTube Supporters Club right now.
So Neil isn't on camera anymore. He's talking with our GM, but apparently I was told that I next time need to ask him about his bench press competitions with Max Fortunas with the AHL. So
we didn't even get to talk about him playing with Lud's sons either. We got
playing
so much
with the Twins,
so much
coaching Travis Morin, then coaching with Travis. Oh my God, we have so much to do. We'll have to have him back on again. Huge thank you. But let's talk about merchandise for a minute. 30% off all merch at our alldls.com website from, I think it started yesterday all the way through Sunday. That's not very long, right? It's just a long weekend. So if you want 30% off this DLS collegiate hoodie, the Finnish Mafia t-shirt, hoodie, all the other shirts, the hats, go right now. 30%. Diehards get 20% on normal occasions, but you get 30% right now. That's even better than the diehard discount. So take advantage of it. Hop on, get those discounts, and get yourself geared up to support DLS and the Stars especially. Okay, let's bring Luds back on the screen. Luds, you're right. I had a dozen more questions I wanted to talk to you today.
We're not done?
It was great to have Neil Graham on, but there's so much more. Like, we could have asked him more details about coaching Leon Bischel. I wanted to ask him more about Thomas Harley. The very fact that he was an assistant coach with Texas for part of a season and then got elevated to head coach because of the Jim Montgomery firing with Dallas that year and that whole domino effect. I mean, that's just, again, opportunity sometimes knocks in the strangest of ways. And I think he's handled himself extremely well. And talk about power play. The results are speaking for itself.
Yeah, and I think he's the first one to admit, like when you have those kind of guys there, you can kind of lay out. But just listening to Neil talk, I'm sure it was a tough decision for Jim Nell, and I think he probably had to do some tap dancing to get Neil to go ahead, step in anytime you like, Ben. There he is. So I think that it was probably tough. I mean, I can see where he would interview really, really well. And I think Jim's conversation with him was probably, let's go this route, because I could see if there ever is, and there's always going to be another change. I mean, nobody sticks around forever. I mean, what is the average now? 2 years, 2.5 years. But
Yeah.
I would think that, he's going at some point, whenever that point is, that he may have the next head coach on his bench. And the way that especially when you have a relationship that it sounds like he does with his best players, those are the guys that you have to keep happy. Let's be honest about it. I mean, you don't want one of those guys disgruntled and kind of straying a little bit.
Yeah.
But, as far as the Finns go, it's in their DNA not to be like that anyway.
You don't want them disgruntled unless you're Hitch, when you have everybody disgruntled, but you're winning.
Yeah, but you know what? The thing about that is he knew the buttons to push, and he knew the guys that could kind of straighten it out a little bit. And then you almost guys played in spite of the things he did. We're like, yeah, what? Well, you know what I mean? But whatever works, I mean, you have to know your audience, and Hitch knew his audience, and he knew the personalities, and he knew the good things and bad things that we did. And as long as we were there to show up for, 2.5 hours at night and an hour during the day, we were all good. And we knew that. If we wanted to get away with some of the things we wanted to get away with, we had to have success, and it worked out for us.
I want to ask you 2 questions about his answers. First, in regards to the power play and the adjustments he mentioned, it's not for me, but it's for our listeners, our viewers. Why did you react so positively to hearing him talk about those adjustments?
Well, because I don't want let the inmates run the asylum. I think there's times that it'd be very easy to just kind of sit back, and when you have 5 quality, and I'm just talking about one group in particular, and then the other group too. When you have so many good, talented players, it's very easy to just let them do what they do. But I think you still have to show that you are the guy in charge, And then on the other side of things, when he talks about going to Mikko, and why wouldn't you go to Mikko? He's the head dog, right? And he's the guy. Everything starts with him. And just run something by him. Don't tell him, hey, we got to do this. You ought to try that. Or you go, hey, Rance, he's open over here. Not sure if you saw him, but there's an opening there. They're starting to take this way. Like when he talks about adjustments, when they want to start taking that bumper position away or take whoever it is, we're going to move somebody over here. So that's the relationship I think you have to have with your best players. And I think that he obviously has that, because this isn't just a fluke that these guys are where they're at after 56, 57 games, or where they're at, that they're one of the best power plays consistently from start to where it is right now. So, and I do think, listening to him, the other thing we talk about when I hear adjustments all the time, you're going to see adjustments when we get to playoff time. You may see adjustments prior to playoff time that they may implement in practice, but not use in the last 5 or 6 games of the regular season. But then all of a sudden you may see a tweak in game 4 because you're playing so-and-so in round 1, and they're already working on those things. So to me, it seems like, and you've got a guy there coaching the D, right, in Elaine, that last year probably saw, we should have made adjustments, but it wasn't his place maybe to go to the head coach and say that. I think right now what they have a really good give and take between all the coaches, and it's an open door. Gully doesn't seem to me to be the general. He's not the guy. It's like, Neil, what do you think? Naz, what do you think? And that's the way I it's from the outside looking in.
Okay, now
can I say one real quick? I was just going to say, off of what you just said, we talked to Elaine Nazardine today because Glenn Goldson was busy, and Naz said the same thing. He wasn't saying anything bad about Pete DeBoer. None of them will. He's a great coach. But Naz was saying everything was really rigid. He talked about breakouts. He said, our breakouts, players, we didn't have a lot of choices. It was, you go back here, here's your read, here's your play. They kept using the word play. Everyone had a play in every area of the ice. And I think the same thing goes with their way they coached. It was like, hey, Naz, here's what we're going to do. Not, Naz, what do you think we should do? And you're right, Luds. When you're around the rink, you feel that vibe. You feel that all of them have their own say. And Goldson just lets them do their own thing. Even Neil Graham, he lets them run the power play. Goldson's one of the better power play coaches in the NHL. And he's letting him run it and then maybe letting him use him as a sounding board. So it's cool to see that. I like it.
Well, and I want to, so the second question for Luds goes into that theme of, Luds, for our viewers and our listeners, when you asked him the question about what you want to see heading between now and the end of the regular season, what progress, development, changes, etc., you were nodding your head a lot, because what Neil Graham was talking about was exactly what you said you needed to see more of from this team before they get to the playoffs.
Yeah, and the biggest key for me is without the puck. You know what I mean? And everything starts when you don't have the puck. And so your structure has to start before you get the puck. And then when you do have the puck, because your structure is correct, that outlet is only 3 or 4 feet away from you. Or if they want to use something different, he's 12 feet away from you, whatever they decide, the opponent, that you can get away with. And so, because again, he uses the analogy I told you guys when he says it connected, like a rope tied to everybody's hip. And so when this guy goes, this guy goes, this guy goes, everybody goes, and you move in harmony and sync. And you can watch games, and I was watching, like when you watch Finland especially, there are 5 guys everywhere, and they have a belief. And this, for me, it always goes back to Yuri Lettinen, but there's a belief in, we have strength in numbers, and the game has really changed like that. So you'll always see that those little dink plays and little 4 and 5 foot passes you used to be able to get away with a few years ago. Well, now there's guys in those lanes, and they're saying, well, if you're going to beat us, you're going to have to go through 3 or 4 guys in those lanes that you want to get the puck to. And if you do get it over there, it's probably a 50-50 race to the other side of the ice or wherever it may be. So that's the part that I find that I like to hear, is that not just when we're doing the power play are we going to be in sync, not when we're doing the PK, it's our 5-on-5 game. But as we know, it's special teams and goaltending that wins in the playoffs. But that chunk in the middle, that's 5-on-5, is normally more than the PP and PK combined.
All right. Should we pivot to Olympics now, or
Sure.
do you have?
I don't
Actually,
know.
no. You know what? Before we do, is there anything from yesterday or today at practice that you want to share with us? Just because, again, we got a week almost till they play, but they've had now a couple of days on the ice. What was it? Wednesday, Thursday, now Friday. So 3 days. They'll practice tomorrow and then have a day off on Sunday.
Yep. Yeah. Nothing much on the ice. Everyone accounted for. That's the big one, right? Everyone healthy. That's here. Those slackers are still over eating pasta in Milan. They haven't come back yet. But
man, gelato.
Yeah, exactly. No, but the big one for me was one the way they're approaching it, which is kind of a ramp up. They're fully expecting a dip from the Olympic players when they come back. They know they're playing these intense games. I mean, I had no dog in the fight in Finland, Canada, and I was clenching every part of my body sitting in there watching that game. So those players are in the most intense moments they've probably been in their lives. So coming back, it's going to be a dip. They're fully expecting that. But the way they're handling everyone here, I got a sense that there was not a whole lot of skating going on during the break from these players.
Did
and
you?
I know that no one's going to go skate. They have to take time off. No one's going to go skate every day.
They weren't allowed to go to the facilities
until the
Wednesday.
day before.
Tuesday afternoon.
Tuesday, yeah. So Tuesday they had an optional.
So that's a good chunk of time where they have to stay away or go find their own stuff.
Yeah. So 2 things on that side. I think the ramp up way they are setting it up, they have a program set up. They had a really light practice on Wednesday. It was only about 40 minutes, pretty light, just some touches. It was, as Neil Graham said, it was rusty.
Yeah.
It looked rusty out there. But I think the day after that, they were doing some skating. They were getting to more pace. And then today was, again, a lot of pace, a lot of quick, fast drills, a lot of pace. Nothing structured because you don't have a lot of guys on the ice. You can't go work, power plays.
Well,
or anything like
and
that.
Gully talked about working with his strength and conditioning coach's sports science team to know that you can't just do Herb Brooks for 5 days.
Right, to build it up so that they're all hitting the peak at the right time.
He was talking about sort of going harder and then dipping down again.
I think tomorrow will be a little bit of a lighter day, and then they take off Sunday. And I'm expecting they're going to practice Monday, Tuesday before they play Wednesday. But the other side of it is with the players. Luds, you'll love this. I forgot to text you this. I asked on Wednesday, I think, I asked him about how they handled all the players that weren't in the Olympics and that were on break. Was there communication? Were you keeping in touch? Were you texting? Were you checking in with them in terms of the strength and conditioning coaches? And he said no. He said, we let them go. We said, he was like, we let them go. He said, honestly, we didn't even talk as coaches. The coaching staff didn't even communicate much. We all wanted to take a break. We know the season has been just hell for these players with how condensed it is. And I think that was huge for them to let them go do their thing. Maverick Bork was like, I haven't watched a single second of Olympic hockey because I'm on the beach in Cabo. They were all down there. A bunch of players were in Cabo. A bunch of players, Adam Murray went to Disney World. You had a bunch of players just getting away from it. But I followed up with Gullison. I said, does that worry you at all? I was like, I know you don't have any Craig Ludwigs that are going to drag them to Mexico City, but are you worried? And he got a good kick out of that one. But I was wondering if he was worried about it. And he was like, nowadays, it's not that way anymore. They take such good care of themselves. We know they're going to do the right things. So that was really cool to hear. But the last thing I took away from today that was really cool, talking to Elaine Nazardine, I love when we get to talk to assistant coaches. Like when Pete went out for his surgery last year in training camp, and we got to talk to Misha and spotter a little
spot.
bit, and I don't remember if we got to talk to Jeff Reese at all, but
they are all smart hockey minds, and they all have different perspectives. And they're, you always hear from the head guy because he's the spokesperson from the coaching staff and a lot of times the team, but it's not for lack of knowledge of the other guys.
Oh, yeah, no.
And that's why, like, we have Neil Graham on. I'd love to get Elaine Nasruddin here. I don't know if Jeff Reese wants to do it or not. He's a great guy to talk to, and you want to talk about intelligent, smart hockey mind. Again, as you said, David Peltier as well.
Yep.
They're all, fascinating because we've all, to get to the NHL, you don't just get plopped in. You've got to earn it. You got to work your way. You got to get there just like the players do. You've got to build up to that. Nobody takes a coach that's only coached, well, except for maybe Martin St. Louis, but that's an exception, and he's certainly earned it because he's been a hockey player forever. But
but so talking to Naz was great. He was so honest, and we'll talk more on future shows because there's a ton of stuff to unpack. But the main things I took away were he was so honest about the way they evaluated players. So we asked him about Thomas Harley's start, Petrovic a little bit, Leon Bischel, and he didn't try to hide away from it. He was like, not only do we know that Harley wasn't playing well, but
don't take it out on the mic.
Thomas knew that he wasn't playing well, and he knew it right away. And Thomas doesn't he used the word fluff. He's like, Thomas doesn't like fluff. He wants us to say to you, hey, you sucked on this play. You were messing up.
Yeah, he's very direct.
Direct.
Yes.
But the cool part about it was then he went on to say that everyone's so different. He was like, look, Miro's this world-class defenseman, but he's a totally different approach in terms of coaching him. And he used Liam Bischel as a good example. He's like, Liam Bischel's a complicated guy. I had to use every approach in the book before I figured out how to coach Liam Bischel.
Interesting.
And I just thought it was cool to hear how deep they go to be able to develop that with each of their players because you have such different characteristics all the way down the line there. And then on the other side of it, one thing he said, I asked him if they thought about breaking up Lindell Heiskanen at all to kind of spread the wealth. And he smiled and he said, yes. He said, it's tough because they're so solid.
Yeah.
But when we were struggling really during that streak, but even before when we were still winning games, but not necessarily playing the best hockey, he said we thought about it. And he even mentioned, he was like, I think Jim came down a couple times and even said, why don't you break those two up a little bit
probably.
And spread the wealth. So I just love talking to the assistants because this is the stuff we don't, not that Glenn's hiding it, but you just don't get this in-depth stuff. So I'm going to write about it. We'll talk more about it. But talking to Naz, it gives you a really cool perspective on the defensive side of things.
All right, Luds, I want to follow up with that.
In public too. You know what I mean? I just think that when they do talk, they're not hiding anything. There's nothing cryptic about it. Like you when you kind of sent a message yesterday, we talked about, Neil might be a little, like he's pretty open. I mean, you give him a question.
Especially here.
We didn't throw him any curveballs or anything like that, but but it's not like this 2 or 3 sentence. He elaborates, and when you're done listening to him, he's painted a picture for you. You already know. And I want to talk about, and I know we got to go to break.
Yeah, hold that thought. We'll go right back to that right after this here on DLLS.
I'll probably forget it by then.
Practice.
He'll probably forget by then.
It's happening.
All right. All right, let's talk about being a diehard. Sam, being a diehard's great.
It is cool. You get all kinds of cool stuff. You get 20% off of merch, like the sweatshirt that Owen has on there.
Very comfortable.
You maybe get 20% off of events that we're going to have. I'm sorry, I'm distracted because Tage Thompson just put the US up two to zip in the first period. But you get 20% off events, which we are going to have plenty of because we are having so much success with all of our events, whether it's at the arena, whether it's here, watch parties, down at Hooters, all kinds of stuff that we do. Very cool. But you also get access to all of the writing and ad-free writing.
Ooh,
so
tell everybody what you're working on because you said I'm going to write this up a little bit more from your practice you were talking about with Elaine Nasruddin.
Yes. So stuff
something you need to be a diehard to read.
Yeah, you need to be a diehard to read stuff about talking to Naz, getting details on each player, getting the ceiling that he believes for Liam Bischel is a good example of a good conversation we have. Talking about how the usage over in the Olympics has affected what they think about. So lots of cool stuff that we get from practice, and my practice notebooks are going to be pretty much all your. I'm not going to post on Twitter 2,000 words about practice. You're going to see it in those articles.
Not going to work.
But I also had an article today that came out, best moments of 2025 for the Dallas Stars, that I took a poll from the fans, and I also have worst moments coming out soon as well. Which, believe it or not, hockey fans like to be negative sometimes. The worst
you probably
moments
have more responses
got
for
way more votes than the best moments. So
of course,
be a diehard so you can read all that good stuff and all of our other sports here.
We are going to do a watch along in case you missed it earlier. After this, The first period just ended. U.S. is now up 2-0 on Slovakia. So when this show ends, we'll just about be ready for the second period. Sam, myself, and probably GM Ben in that vacated chair over there will stay right here with a new link. So you have to go to a separate one, and we'll do a watch along. And don't forget Die Hard Discord Lounge.
Oh, yeah.
You get into that, the DLS Discord Lounge.
There's an Olympics one now.
Yes, a channel inside.
An Olympics channel, yep.
So the Stars channel inside the Discord Lounge is very busy. And of course, we will go there for Sam does Die Hard mailbags, which you have to be a Die Hard not only to submit the questions, but also to read them. And then we do the damn Discord channel Q&A on the show. It's a lot of fun. Find it. You'll make some new friends for life and have a lot of fun with that. All right, Luds, let's go back to what you were saying. If you remember it, it was 2.5 minutes ago now. But
yeah, I'm working on it. I'm replaying what Sam was saying.
But you know,
you guys are talking about a ride along. I'm doing a watch along, I guess. I'll be doing a ride along, and the two people I'll be riding with will be a long way behind me.
Wait, that's assuming you have enough vehicles that haven't had the engines blown yet.
We got 3 out here. We got 3 good ones running out here right now. So,
well, you push them to the limit, don't you?
That Gully had said, or whoever said that there was going to be a dip. The good news is, you know who's not going to be dipping is your best players, because they've all been playing, and now they're going to get their 2 or 3 days off, and so they're probably going to. It's going to be more about the other guys that are practicing right now catching up to pace with those guys, because
That's true.
If there's going to be a gap anywhere, you're going to find that their passing will probably be on point better than the other guys, and making the decisions at the right time because they've been playing, so it's naturally you talk about guys being on beaches. And I absolutely love that there was no contact with the coaches. And the biggest point about that, they trust their guys. Yeah. It was a little different. Like I said, back in the day, there was,
Luds wanted more freedom. You had plenty of freedom. You just went and did whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
I love how he immediately moved on. Like, no, let's not get into that.
He didn't have freedom. He took freedom.
Luds, but to Sam's point earlier about, and you must deal with this on a daily basis with your U18 team, of trying to figure out how to unlock each individual player, because they're not all the same. It's not robots. They're human beings, and you have to get through to them in each of their own unique ways.
Yeah, being frank is the guys that we watch every night, they have a common goal, okay? And that's to win, and that's to win a Stanley Cup. At our level, unfortunately, it's just natural. There's 3, 4, 5 players. Their goal isn't necessarily as team-oriented as you would like. It's to get to juniors. So
sure.
When you're trying to get them to, there's the play, we got this set up, you'll find that they will try to do some things on their own because people that are sitting upstairs watching them. And it's totally understandable. So let me tell you, 70% of what I try to talk to them about is that those guys up there want to see a team guy. They want to see set people up. They want to see that you can play all facets of the game. You're not just a guy that likes to skate it through everybody else. So that's a bit of a challenge there. But yeah, I think we preach that probably more than anything, because just like this at a different level, we need those other 8, 9, 10 guys. We need number 5 and number 6 and number 7 defensemen to be part of what we're trying to do, because you can't just ride 2 or 3 defensemen for an entire game when you're playing every other day. At this time of the year, you play every other day, and we're going to regionals here coming up next week, and we'll have 4 games, and hopefully 4, because that means we're in championship games. So,
let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, Sam. Let's talk about Canada-Finland, because obviously it was great to have Neil Graham on, and boy, we could do a whole show just on that. But that was an.
Can I say for 1 second? Our show, I love that the guests open up on our show. Yeah, we got Ritzkovian, we got Neil Graham, who are great people to talk to, but when they're in the professional setting on the camera, they're very quick, they're very to the point, they're very basic answers that hockey players give. Everyone that's come on our show has opened up and given us some really great answers. I really love that.
To what we were talking about earlier, when Neil filled in for Gully for one of the morning skate media availabilities, he was much more to the point, quick, and also not wanting to say things that Gully maybe wouldn't have said or approved. Right. He kind of deferred a bit. this was the open and honest, and it was one. I hope they continue to feel comfortable doing this on our show because it's way more interesting.
I know we had a staff member. That's our first coach in
Here.
studio.
Yes.
So we got to get a player now is next up to be sitting in this seat.
That's right. Well, we could do other coaches too.
Other coaches.
I'll tell you something. Whether it's Gully, and we know Gully's really good.
Yep.
Gully, Naz, whoever else follows him is going to be tough. That's what I think right now. Gully's very good, right?
Yep.
But Neil gave you a lot. Like I keep saying that, he gave us a lot. If you go back and you listen to everything that he gives you, that's why I can see why he was heavily, talked to about head coaching and where he's going to be, because he's done his time. He has, and he's looking for the next step. And I wanted to kind of ask him that, in that time and all that kind of stuff. And at the end of the year, do you go how does it work? Do you go out and you make a call, your rep make a call, or are you just happy you're going to do your time and you're that guy that, if I signed for 2-3 years, whatever it may be, I'm cool. I'm going to wait until the third year. It doesn't usually work like that sometimes.
Yeah. Luds, my prediction for our next player guest is going to be Blake Coleman. When he becomes a Dallas Star, he will be on our show.
We should get one before that, though.
Oh, yeah. Okay, maybe not next.
Yeah.
Soon.
But if we're doing that, that means he's going to be in there. He's not going to be sitting in Calgary doing it remotely.
Agreed.
I think he's already here. I think he's already moved here.
That's
what I hear.
Yeah. So I want to ask you about Canada,
That's called
Finland.
putting the cart ahead of the horse.
I felt that Finland got too conservative and went into protect the lead mode way too early.
Yep.
Canada ties it with just under 10 minutes to go in the third period, and Finland had been protecting the house. I mean, I know, Lud, you were talking about earlier, they look like they're on a penalty kill at 5-on-5 because they condense so tightly. But second period, first period was pretty good. Obviously, very good. They had a 2-0 lead. And then I just thought they got a little too prevent defense instead of going after, because they had Canada pretty nervous in that game.
Yeah, they did. And I wouldn't say nervous. It was frustrated,
Sure.
but that's the system that they play. And they play, we're going to frustrate you. We're going to get you to the point where you start to panic near the end and all that kind of stuff. And that's exactly what you expect of them. But again, to me, when you play too much of that, you're playing not to lose. And, that's a little bit different. And that's why I was talking about the difference the other day between Canada and even the United States. And I see that they're up 2-0 now. The team that Billy Guerin put together and the team that Cooper and Jim Nill and all these guys and Army put together, to me, the U.S. looks a little bit more like they're confident on the way that they want to play. And I think they seem a little more connected. I said that the other day, that Canada didn't look as connected as you would. But again, those guys don't play with each other, but there's so many superstars that can do so much on their own. And then I felt like some of those guys didn't want to do that. They didn't want to be the selfish guy. 97 didn't want to, and McKinnon didn't want to, and all that kind of stuff. So it'll be interesting. Obviously the way this is going, it'll be interesting. And did I get that right? That game's at 7 a.m.
7:30, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Our time. Okay. Awesome. I'll be traveling down the road with my little iPad right here. Hopefully it works as we're moving down the road.
Luds, can you move your head to the right a little bit?
This way? Oh.
Yeah, it's time. The sleds are calling.
That is absolutely horrifying, sneaking up in the back right there. I mean,
Hey, you want to know?
I thought you were going to get murdered.
So you need to know this. You guys have heard this before. That's Ring Daddy. This is the guy that Kim called him up a few years ago and said, Ringer, we'd like you to marry us. He said, what? And she said, can you marry us? And he goes, yeah, I can go take one of them tests. And he took a test in 15 minutes. How long did it take it? 15 minutes. And he was ordained. And then he married us. So we're not sure if it's legal or not, but that's our priest and everything else.
Did he wear the full snowmobile suit when he was performing his duties?
No, we had him wrapped in bubble wrap because he had little Mickeys of peppermint schnapps trying to spill it to everybody else. And so it was one of those kind of things. But.
All right, Lud. So U.S. is up 2-0. The next time that we do a show, it'll be after the gold medal game. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. They've got 2 more periods to play Slovakia. But if they do get the matchup that we all expect, USA-Canada, your thoughts as we wrap up today's show?
I expect it to be a close game. You know, credit to the guys that said Bennington's my guy and Hellebuck's my guy. Regardless of what you want to say
Bennington was
about
great today.
and anybody else, right? Those guys have lived up to it. They've both made timely saves at times. I can see it being one of them 3-2 games. You know, nobody's going to want to make a mistake.
Yep.
Even when a bad goal goes in, the goaltenders seem to recover and get their game back on track. I'm sure both GMs and head coaches are hoping those are the guys that they get back when the hockey season starts again for them. But I think it's going to be a close game. I hope it goes to overtime. Honestly, I really do. I don't really care which team wins. I think we know guys on each side of it, but I just want it to be a good close game, and I think that's the way it's shaping up right now. And it's too bad that, well, we don't know, but I think we have to assume Crosby's not going to be in that game.
Hey,
but,
he skated this morning, so they're not ruling him out yet. It would be people were saying at the rink today, just dress him and put him on your bench.
We thought
for
they'd do that
gold
for the
medal
semis,
game, right?
but-
Like just put him on there. You probably don't need your 13th forward. I think it's going to be very low scoring. I think maybe 2-1. Everything's been very.
I would
tight.
say the alternate. If you don't think you can get any productive minutes out of Sidney Crosby, and listen, if he can go, there will be some productive. But if he's that hurt, don't waste the roster spot. The U.S. did it with Matthew Tkachuk in the Four Nations, and it was a waste. Not saying that he wasn't a rah-rah guy on the bench, but there
Crosby's
are too many
different.
good guys on the roster.
Crosby's got a little bit of aura around him.
Crosby's like your coach, right?
Yeah.
You think?
I do.
Yeah.
I feel like
if you lose a guy to an injury?
It's tough. It's a tough choice.
I would say if he can't play,
you know what else I'll say about that is there's going to be certain guys sitting on the bench at key moments of the game, and if Sid is sitting there, somebody's going to say, "Let's dip this for Sid." Like Sid's not going to be here in 4 years from now. Probably this could be his last one, more than likely. Let's do it for Sid, and the dude's sitting right there. So
yeah, just got to say, Sam.
I don't know if
Nessler
that's going to happen.
Canada gold, U.S. silver, Finland bronze.
All right,
well on the way.
We will see. Right. Thank you very much to Neil Graham and the Dallas Stars for facilitating their visit today. If you haven't seen it, check it out again at the beginning of our show. The first 2 segments, Neil was great. For Craig Ludwig, Sam Nessler, Ryan Vodder's our producer. I'm Owen Newkirk. Watch along starts
be safe.
in just moments right here on DLLS.
Just
Find
come
the link.
back.
No place to be safe.
We all silly like the mayor.